Hello and welcome to part 2 of 2 for this mission. That was a horrendous intro. Welcome to my channel, those of you who've never seen my content before. In this video we're going to be building a space station that goes like it's like in circles, a magic boulder asteroid that we captured into low Kerbin orbit in last Saturday's video. So if you haven't seen that, I can't put a link on screen because annotations have been killed off now. There's like a little card appeared. It's like a sort of, in the top right, it's sort of a white circle with an exclamation point in it, I think. That's what they look like. If not, there's one in the description just to take you to the first episode where we actually capture the magic boulder. And in this episode, as I said, we're going to be building a space station attached to the magic boulder. So we're going to be doing several launches to put this thing together. We're going to be using the same rocket. I'm not going to recover the rocket and refuel it because that would take a lot of effort and I'm too lazy, so we're not going to do that. But we are going to use the same lifting stage every day. Now, the eagle-eyed among you may notice that I have used this lifting stage for a number of missions before. Well, 2, I think. There was the building a moon base mission, and then there was the single launch space station, the very first one I did, which was in a polar orbit around Kerbin. And I also used a modified version of this lifter in another video. I don't remember which one. There'll be people in the comments who will know. It's probably quite bad that I can't remember, but it is besides the point. So for those of you who are not necessarily completely familiar with my channel, I often prioritize laziness over outright efficiency. Well, I mean, I guess that's kind of true. I mean, a lot of people know me as an SSTO builder. In those missions, efficiency is very much of the essence, and I have to spend a long time planning gravity assists and fine-tuning maneuvers and, squeezing every drop of fuel counts and all of this stuff. So these kinds of videos are my detox from that. So I really don't care about efficiency because I'm like, well, this doesn't have to be an SSTO, so we'll just keep on adding fuel tanks and boosters until we have enough fuel, right? So there we go. That's why this video is filmed like that. So, if you want to watch the tutorial, then you can watch the Scott Manley one or any number of the, I assume, thousands of docking tutorials. Perhaps even my docking tutorial, which was, like I planned this video to be a very soft tutorial. Like, it is much more about me saying, okay guys, here we go, launching the rocket, and then we're going to go and pitch ourselves this way and aim up, like more of a kind of a walkthrough, kind of, but it's not so hand-holdy, because I think that tutorials that handhold and, just relying, like, you build the exact same rocket as what's in the tutorial and you follow every single maneuver to the letter, are you actually learning anything there? I think the best way to actually get better at docking, as I illustrated in my little pseudo tutorial, was, just do it, In the immortal words of Shia LaBeouf, just do it. Is it Shia LaBeouf or Shia LaBeouf? Either way, if I use either pronunciation, someone's going to call me out in the comments. So now I've used both, we can put it to rest. So yes, as I said, in the immortal words of Shia LaBeouf, just do it. Just do it. Get good. That's always the Dark Souls mantra. When people say Dark Souls is really hard, everyone just says get good. I used to find that a very frustrating thing to hear when I'm like, I'm really struggling. I don't really know how to play this game. And people say get good. It's kind of frustrating, but then you just keep playing it, you learn how the game mechanics work, you learn how to approach situations in ways that you might not necessarily done before you started playing, and then it becomes easier, and then it becomes fun, and it's ultimately much more rewarding to pull these things off by doing it yourself, if that makes sense. So that's why I always provide craft files, except for this video, but I always provide craft files in my video descriptions just because I guess people might want to just see how the crafts are built, or they just want to fly them because they don't really want to have to design one themselves. But I don't like people downloading them. I always recommend don't download it if you're doing it to try and get better, because you won't improve by just using other people's crafts. I would recommend just playing the game and have fun. Just have fun. Have fun, play the game, and you'll get better. And that's the best way. That's the best way of improving. So I guess my point is that I think that was a very rambly point, but I hope I got it across that you just play the game. And you will learn these things. So I've grabbed onto the asteroid there, but that's a pretty terrible connection there. Just one little pincer of the claw. So we'll just detach and then I would say re-dock, but it's more re-grab the magic boulder. And there we go. So the first phase of the space station is complete. There's 3 more to go, so we form a nice box around it. I did consider placing a ring around it, but that would have just had to have been launched in one go because there's no. I mean, to get a perfect circle, I don't think there's an actual way of doing that through rendezvousing and docking. I just don't, with the stock parts, that is. So I decided to go for a square because people have done ring stations before, like me. But where was I going with this? Here we are, deorbiting one of the guidance boosters. It's quite hard because, like, I'm acutely aware of two things. One, this video is very long, so I'm trying not to just rattle through points and then have nothing to talk about. And also the fact that, I don't know if you could tell from my voice being slightly more nasal than it normally is, but I'm either ill at the moment or the more likely diagnosis of I have hay fever, which has plagued me my entire life, and I get it pretty badly. And anyone in the comments who suffers from hay fever, you know, I feel your pain, I understand your pain. And anyone who doesn't suffer from hay fever in the comments and, you know, wants to express their sympathy, I'm grateful, but you have no idea how crushing it is, you know. So if anyone wants to send me donations to my Patreon, you know, to provide emotional support, pay for my therapy, because I just, you know, having a bunged up nose all the time, it's just so soul destroying. Okay, it's probably not that bad, but I have an interesting history with hay fever. I mean, when I was younger, I used to get it a lot worse than I do now. And it got to the point where my mum was so concerned that I had it even in the winter, it seemed. She took me down to the Leicester Royal Infirmary for an allergy test. And what they do in these allergy tests is they take the most sophisticated of all medical instruments, a Bic biro, and they take your arm, and then, like, from your elbow to your wrist, they draw a small grid. So the grid has like 2 rows and then about like 10 columns, I think it is. I don't know. Could Google it, but I'm too lazy. And they prick each square in the grid with a specific allergen, for example, Timothy grass as one of them. And then they just leave you, and they just sit, and then leave you, and then they just come back and have a look and see which grid has swelled up, and that means that you're allergic to that particular agent, if that makes sense. Anyway, cut to 10 minutes later, and my arm had ballooned to twice the size, and it was concluded that I was allergic to pretty much everything, which was a shame, to say the least. And I was promptly prescribed, by the way, not just picked off the shelf things from the chemist, nasal spray, tablets, and eye drops. So, you know, I can sometimes get away without the eye drops now because I hate having eye drops, you know. Seems ironic since I instill eye drops in my actual day job all the time, but like I say, I can usually get away without them for the most part and just wear sunglasses when I go outside. And then I have an off-the-shelf nasal spray and usually cetirizine tablets. Loratadine don't do it doesn't do very much for me. So here we are coming up to our second encountering the asteroid for a second time. So you can see on the nav ball, I'm using the autopilot functions. Burning, when you have it set to target, see it says target 3.8 meters per second. That's because we are, as you may have guessed, relative to the target here. So burning retrograde causes you to match speed with the target, unless you burn retrograde too much, and then it will flip over to burning prograde. So yeah, so burning prograde accelerates yourself to be going faster than the target. Retrograde slows you down. Burning pointing towards the target, so the bottom left symbol in the autopilot options points yourself directly to what you're targeting to, which is how you can shrink down your maneuver and get a closer approach. And anti-target is the opposite. So yeah, this, if you're new to docking, you shouldn't really be attempting something as ambitious as this. I mean, actually, it's not really that ambitious. I mean, if you forget about the asteroid, this is a pretty simple operation. So I tend to recommend, in my excellent docking tutorial video, I recommended doing Apollo-style missions to Minmus, which is an incredibly easy place to get to and land on, and it's much easier to do orbital rendezvous around Minmus than it is to do on Kerbin, because you can get to orbit almost instantaneously from the surface of Minmus, whereas Kerbin you've got to go through the atmosphere and it's much harder, and obviously the planet itself is much bigger than the moon of Minmus. So it's easier to practice doing that, and it's a good skill to be able to do Apollo style because it's more efficient than doing direct descent. Anyway, deorbiting the guidance boosters again because we want to minimize all the debris. Well, we don't want to leave any debris in orbit, and that's why you may have seen me earlier deorbiting the Rhino stage. They had like a little Sputnik. I'll just show it. I'll just point it out when we do it next time. So here we are. I just decided it might be better to rename the vessel to Asteroid Base and change it to a base, and there go the drills, so we can actually acquire samples from the very core of the asteroid. But we'll talk about more about the modules once we have things assembled. But a lovely non-nauseating camera angle there. There we go. Launching this stage, this rocket for the 3rd time. So I'm just going to pretend that I actually recovered the lifter stage, and it was great. And, you know, it didn't just crash into the ocean. I just built another one. There we go. Shit, my goddamn phone. This better be good. Who texted me? You know, I'm recording a commentary. It was my mum. We've booked a Ryanair flight. Well, that's just phenomenal. Anyway, this was actually, so I didn't accidentally flip the rocket here. This was an intentional move. What I did there was I made it so the rocket would flex over like that, so I could get a good look at the payload just to make sure it was intact. That was a deliberate tactical move I just did. If you thought that was an accident, you are mistaken. I intended to flip the rocket over like that, because I never make mistakes when playing this game, ever. I've never done anything wrong, and this is not one of the... I didn't do anything wrong there. That was an intentional strategy. And here we are, quickly changing the subject, making a maneuver node, because I was at a pretty... That tactful and deliberate maneuver resulted in a slightly inclined orbit, so I'm just adjusting the maneuver node to know whereabouts which direction I need to burn in order to get myself equatorial to the same sort of plane as the asteroid station. So again, it's a very, you know, the apoapsis is very high, and you know, it's not the prettiest of encounters, but again, we have tons. We've still got half the fuel left in the Rhino stage, so what does that say? 400 meters per second. It's happened now, but yeah. So this is going to be circularizing our orbit to be the same as the asteroid base is, and then we can just use the last drop of fuel to deorbit the Rhino stage. I don't know if you saw it was a very quick cutaway, but you could see the Sputnik probe, lots of reaction wheels, and some small batteries just to keep that thing powered when we detach it. And now we can cut to the this module, which is, I guess, the habitation module. I suppose I didn't really put much thought into what each module's purpose would be, because there's a science lab, and then there's just crew modules in Kerbal Space Program. There's no like bionics or botany areas, or and like what other things do you get on a space station? I don't actually know anything about space, guys. Okay, it's probably just lots of labs, right? That's all there is in space. So maybe we can just pretend these are labs. I don't know. Yeah, so you can see the 2 tubes there constructed out of Mark II fuselages. So the top row, that's got the restaurants and bars there. We've got a little casino on the lower decks. And then in the other deck that I haven't talked about yet, we've got a small games room. It's going to be beautiful for the crew. So they really like that one. So we've got some relay antennas there, and just a communications dish as well on this module, as well as some RTGs to passively generate electricity for the station, because I didn't really want a giant solar panel arm, because it would kind of detract from... I want the centerpiece to be the big asteroid in the middle, so I think having just a giant load of panels sticking off the side might detract. Is that the right word? Might detract from the view of the asteroid, so... RTGs is fine, and we have so many electric batteries. We have so many batteries on there. Electricity shouldn't ever be an issue, and we've got pretty high apoapsis, so we have a good exposure to the sun anyway. I guess first of all, we'll just deorbit this other guidance booster. These things were just stupidly overpowered, weren't they? We've got 4,500 meters per second of fuel. I don't know what I was thinking having that much fuel. I know what I was thinking. It's just I can't be bothered just in case I didn't put enough fuel on. I'll just over-engineer it, so I have to keep redoing the mission, because that's how dedicated that's just how lazy I am, to be honest. Anyway, beautiful launch here. We can see the Mun in the background, as well as Minmus just to the left of the top bit of the fairing. The top bit, yes, that's the correct engineering term to use, isn't it? So you can't really see, well, you can see it now, but we're just tilting this slowly over to the left, to the right, which would be east, if this were... So we're just tilting our gravity turn now. We want to be aiming about 45 degrees by the time we get to 10 kilometers up, as I'm sure you're aware. Shooting through the clouds, which are a part of the stock visual enhancements mod. No, they're not. They're from the environmental visual enhancements mod. Gush. Making up words now. How did I get the two mixed up? Who knows? The other mods, for those wondering, we've got Scatterer. It's doing the cool atmospheric scatter, and we also have planet shine for some of the lighting. Just that's why things might look a little bit glowy in one of my desperate attempts to combat the fact that YouTube's compression algorithms make everything very dark. So I just kind of bump up the lighting using planet shine, and then I do a little bit of tweaking in Sony Vegas when I'm actually editing the video itself. So we're just finishing up our burn now, burning fairly slowly so we can just watch our apoapsis go at a nice reasonable speed, and we actually got a fairly good encounter this time. It's not too bad. We'll continue burning till we can get a nice close approach. 0.9 kilometers should do nicely, and then we'll do the fine tuning when we're actually getting closer. I'm just going to do the same thing as before. We're just going to time warp all the way to the closest encounter and then burn retrograde relative to the target in order to match our speed. So here we go, point retrograde on the nav ball. And you well, that was a close one, wasn't it? I'm sure they got a nice little view from the asteroid space station just then. But yeah, regardless, we can just detach that Rhino booster now, deorbit it, and then we'll just burn towards it. So we have a half-filled orange tank here. This actually wasn't a mistake. It's because if we're going to be synthesizing fuel from the magic boulder, we'll need somewhere to put that fuel. So we've got this orange tank just here, but I've half-filled it just so until we actually ever did mine the asteroid, we still have some reserves in case, a vessel gets stranded in Kerbin orbit and has enough fuel to get an encounter with the base, but not enough fuel to get back to the surface. I do actually have a refueling station anyway, though. It was the video where I built the station using SSTOs, but whatever. So we're coming in for our encounter here, and
mission failed. We'll get them next time.
And that, children, is why you always quick save. Even if you are quote-unquote good at the game, you still need to quick save, because sometimes the Kraken, he shows no mercy. Sometimes it will just happen and there's nothing you can do about it. So if you just have a look here on the left, you can see how the docking ports are assembled on the station itself. You can see how the top module is connected to a different docking port to the bottom module, if that makes sense. And I didn't really notice that I'd made this mistake at the time. So when I came in to dock this module to it, it was asymmetric. I went to say asymmetrical, but then started saying asymmetry. I noticed the asymmetry and thought, this isn't gonna do. This ain't gonna do. We need this to be perfect. And also, it would have been quite difficult lining up with the side docking port, if that makes sense. We want to be using the end docking port because then the orientation of the modules won't matter, if that makes sense. Whereas because if we dock to that docking port now, we'll be pointing in the wrong inclination. Does that make sense? It probably doesn't, but it might. Just slow the footage down so you can get a good look at how the docking ports are assembled. So we needed to do some quick reassembling. You may have noticed that this module here doesn't have any monopropellant tanks on it, but those two cockpits at either end do have monopropellant reserves, which is how I'm able to use the RCS thrusters here. It doesn't have much monopropellant, as you can see from the resource panel, but it's enough to do this very simple maneuver. So I'm just going to reverse it here and dock it to this thing instead, and there we go. So I did do a little bit more faffing around than that clip implies. I did speed it up to be a little bit better paced for the sake of viewers not getting bored, which I think I failed to do for the rest of this commentary. Here we are, just slowly easing our way in, slotting in, and there we go. So you can see the docking ports aren't quite aligned there because some of the modules weren't quite straight when I docked them on. So I had to do a few bit of tweaks here and there to get the docking ports to all align. This was I'm just going to fast forward to the final thing I had to reassemble. So again, we're using that same module we just moved a minute ago, or at least a moment ago in the video. Just trying to angle it so it's at the right angle to meet both ends of this docking system, and I failed there. So then once we did that, we then had to change the angle of the other modules in order to get the docking ports lined up. Ultimately, we'll just skip ahead of the thing because there's you don't really need to see me keep doing it. So we're just gonna angle ourselves nicely using SAS and dock ourselves on, and there we go. We have ourselves pretty lined up, and then I noticed my heart sank. I thought I'd measured it up perfectly, but it didn't quite meet. Millimeters off, come on. Okay, I think I'm over it now. So we can just deorbit the side boost. So if you want to make this thing yourself, check, or make it so it doesn't meet up. Like, you remember that film, Star Wars? It's a little thing you might have heard of. In the Phantom Menace, there were those weird donut-shaped space stations that were like They were circles, but each arm of the circle, it didn't quite meet. Yeah? Do it. Build it like that. Just that's probably what I would recommend here. But it's not what I did in this video, so... Well, I guess that's pretty much it, actually. I've waffled on for far too long, but I hope you enjoyed this this stream. Yeah, look, you see, I'm still trying to get it to desperately.com, but it ain't happening, mate. It ain't happening. Gotta move on. So, just a quick overview. There go the drills once again, deploying them so we can get some samples from the core. There's our science module, so we can do science, I suppose. And then I'll just do this sort of spinning camera angle so you can see the rest of the station, really. It's got lots of nice modules on it. I really only built this because I wanted to build a spaceship. I wanted to build a space station around an asteroid. And, you know, we had the magic boulder there, so why not do it around the magic boulder? But that wraps this video up. So, top left was the previous episode of this two-part series in which we captured the asteroid. Top right was specially selected by YouTube's algorithm just for you. And bottom right is another space station I built using an SSTO, but that video has a really cool twist to it. So, check out any of those, and thank you for watching this one.